This is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint. Now, your host, James Just.
And welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just. This is my co-host, author, John Cameron, and author, co-host. One of these days, John, I am going to actually get an intro that I don't mess up.
I'm not worried about it. Yeah.
One of these days. You know, maybe it's just my style now. But talk about messing up. We're going to get to it. The Sacramento has been ranked the second dirtiest city in America, ahead of cities like LA, Boston. The only place that's worse is Baltimore. And if you've ever been to Baltimore, yeah, it makes sense. But now I do kind of have an agreement with the city a little bit. The
methodology of the study
is a bit strange, but doesn't mean it's not valid. I mean, the ranking order may not be exact, but the methodology does show that we have a problem.
Yeah.
The methodology was the analyzed 311 calls and through some various, I don't know how many, the percentage of calls were based upon things like homeless problems and cleanups, and they kind of analyze it that way. But the trash pickups and all these various things. But this, so there's two things. Either we are a very dirty city, which if you walk down the streets in my neighborhood, it's not,
not a question.
Not a question. You've got homeless encampments with
even without
trash.
Them, it's filthy city.
I was sitting in front of at a train or tram crossing, and the light rail passed by, and it's the dirtiest light rail car I have ever seen. And I'm not talking graffiti. I'm just talking dirt.
Filthy.
It was just, it hadn't been washed in like 6 months. My car was cleaner than this, and I don't wash my car. And when I go, that's a dirty tram.
It has to be dirty.
It has to be a dirty tram. But the other option is maybe we're just a city full of Karens who call and complain over every little thing.
Why can't we be both?
I
think we are both. I live by the American River. I mean, literally, I can see it from my dining room. That's why I bought my place. And no, I'm not rich, so don't like break into my house and try to steal stuff that I don't have. But anyway, I literally will see abandoned fast food stuff within feet of trash cans. I see. I walk by the American River. There's no bike trail where I live, so there's people walking, and I'll see just trash tossed. Somebody tosses it, like somebody's gonna come pick it up. Down by the river where people are, partying and drinking beer, there's trash, and that's much less the homeless encampments. They're a disaster. But I think people are now mean-spirited about it. It's like they're trying to. There's a water fountain in the park very close to my house that has one button to push for doggy water bowl at the bottom, another for humans that are short, but I use the big people one even though I'm short. And somebody had just put excrement all over it. And you drive down freeways here, and we supposedly have people cleaning them, and you see trash everywhere. If you go to Europe, you don't see that. You don't see it in Germany, I'll tell you that. You don't see it in England. People have, you look at all of the monuments that are open for public viewing in England, they have little bitty fences around them, no graffiti. Everything in the United States doesn't have an armed guard on it is covered by graffiti. So it's I don't know. But Sacramento is filthy, and we're full of Karens.
Yeah, and there's been a disintegration of culture, of the care of your culture, right? And here,
pride of place.
Well, in the United States, it makes sense, doesn't it? We've been telling people that our history and our culture is bad and evil, and it needs to be thrown away. So it doesn't make any sense that people are graffitiing it and treating it like trash. Because if you've been told your culture is trash, well, then you will treat your culture as trash. And so is it really that big of a surprise? And in places like Sacramento and San Francisco and Baltimore, these are those places where, our culture is evil. It's the home of those places, right? San Francisco, Boston, LA, Portland. All these are places, these dirtiest places in the country, are places that are the ones that tell us our history and our past and our culture is dirty. Yeah. So their citizens are treating it like that.
There are also ones that don't have, that don't protect property. I mean, property is not protected. There are places where property is protected in this country, and that people have rights to, defend their property, and that criminals are thrown in jail, and the people that break windows at least have to go, I don't know, pick up trash or something. And when when you're not punished for doing bad things, you keep doing them. Yeah.
Well, and it's what they will punish us for, John, that gets me. They will punish you if you if you sort your garbage wrong, right? If you don't, it's against the law right now to not sort your garbage, to put your organics in with the garbage.
You know what? I'm willing to bet if you looked at the number of people that are complying with that right now, it'd be less than 10%.
Oh, it's a pain in the butt. Why would you do it?
Yeah, and it doesn't make any sense. Can I rant for like a minute?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so you're supposed to separate your organics from inorganic, right? You're supposed to pull it out of the trash. You're supposed to keep your grease in a jar and then heat it once a month and put it in a milk jug and leave it out and all the rest of that. But you put your dog poop in your trash can. So basically, even if you did everything right, you would have disease-ridden, all sorts of bugs and parasites and nasty microbes and amoebas and giardia and everything love dog poop. Comes out of dogs, and then it gets even worse. But you put that in this pristine trash that you pick through, and hopefully with rubber gloves, because you don't want to get that stuff on your hands. And then you put dog poop in it. So there is no logical consistency. That's the end of my rant.
Well, it doesn't even make sense. One of the things, you need organic material in a landfill in order for it to work properly. It's how landfills work. It's how decomposition works. So you take out the stuff that will naturally decompose faster, which will help the stuff around it decompose faster. You take that stuff out and make dirt out of it, essentially. Well, now how are you
Dead dirt, not live dirt, dead dirt. But then you take all the organic material somewhere, supposedly, this is what they're doing, they're turning it into compost somewhere and either selling it or giving away. I think that's probably going to be the most expensive compost the world has ever seen.
And the dirty little secret is, if you don't compost correctly, you're creating just as much methane as you would in a dump, in a landfill. So you're actually, unless you compost exactly perfectly, you're not even saving any methane into the environment. It's California virtue signaling yet again and accomplishing nothing.
I'm shocked by that.
But they're talking about having an extra guy to ride in the garbage truck to watch what comes out of your trash can when they dump it out, so they can tell you. Yeah, so they can send you a fine.
Are they doing that?
Not yet, but they're talking about it. Well, because compliance, like you said, compliance is less than 10%. So how are you going to get people to comply?
How about you just change it back to the old way? There are places all over the country, because recycling doesn't work either. It costs way more money to recycle than not to recycle, that are ending recycling,
Because, I had this discussion a while back. If you have to gather up all your cardboard, you gather it up and you put it into a warehouse, you put it on a truck, you ship it to the container port, to a port down by the coast, Portland, San Francisco, whatever. You hold it there until you gather enough to put it on a boat. You put it on that boat across the ocean to China or India someplace, and they put it in a landfill. That's what happens with most of our recycling.
Or it gets halfway across and they go, nobody's looking, right over the side. But they charge you $1 million to take it.
Yeah, and you were actually creating those kind of recycling programs. Actually, create more pollution than they solve. But we like to feel
virtue signaling.
We like to feel good about ourselves.
I think we beat garbage to death.
Yeah, we beat garbage to the death. So let's. Sacramento's district attorney is trying to allegedly help with this dirt problem. He wants the city. He wants the city to actually follow the law.
And we're not saying that people are dirt. We're saying that they make places dirty.
Yeah,
we're talking about homeless. Yeah.
A year and a half ago, we voted here in Sacramento to an ordinance to help deal with the homeless population. We'll call it that. And the city has done nothing. They've dragged their feet. And so now the district attorney he wants to charge the city. The city government, the managers.
And they're up, it's a public nuisance.
It's a public nuisance.
And you can actually, I'm kind of on his side now, but I'm also on the side of the homeless people, because, they're saying that the reason these homeless people are out there and have all the problems is there's nowhere to put them. But they won't make anywhere to put them that doesn't cost $1 million because it's the homeless industrial complex. But mostly they're out there because they're mentally ill and they're addicted, or both. And I see them, again, I live right by the American River, and I see them walk around talking to each other. I habituate, that's probably the wrong word, a coffee house in Midtown that they come in asking for water. They're kind enough to give them water because you don't want to have a schizophrenic person who is also dehydrated. You know, make sure they're at least hydrated. So, you know, the problem is the mental illness and the drug addiction. Take care of that, then you know they won't want to live in excrement.
Yeah, and some of that is you know, it's the cart before the horse, the chicken and the egg thing. Is were the mentally ill before they got homeless, or is homelessness contributed to their mental illness and their addiction? And that's a difficult question, but at some point it doesn't matter. You have to deal with where they're at, right?
Yeah.
You have to, and we're not dealing with where they're at, and we refuse to acknowledge that part of California's problem with homelessness is that it's so expensive to live here because the government makes it expensive to live here. They deliberately make it expensive.
Deliberately make it expensive to live here.
And then pretend that it's somebody else's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, Richard has an opinion about this. There's a song, a popular song now, the Rich Men North of Richmond. And well, you know, Richard has a idea about who exactly that song is talking about. So let's kind of find out from Richard, who are the North?
Something from the fields.
Who are the rich men?
I'll be interested to see what Richard has to say from the fields.
As we speak, the #1 country hit is Rich Men North of Richmond. If you've been sleeping under a log, north of Richmond is the Washington, D.C. metro area, home of our politicians and the bureaucrats that run the federal administrative agencies, what we refer to cynically as the deep state, and of course, lobbyists and so-called news reporters by the thousands. The singer is a blue-collar worker who, according to his own account, told God that he'd get sober if he could get help following his dreams. That was just over a month ago. Now his song is topping the charts. The lyrics are instructive. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I could sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a song that vividly contrasts the life of working people who, inflation adjusted, are still working for 1970s wages, while the ruling classes in D.C. have gotten very rich indeed over the last 50 years, relatively speaking. The phenomenon he describes is the result of federal deficit spending and money printing, which have caused the prices of assets owned by the rich, real estate, stocks, and bonds, to go up exponentially, while the wages of laborers are stagnant after adjusting for inflation. In the chorus, he alludes to the surveillance state and the quest by politicians to exercise more and more control over the people. Living in the new world with an old soul, these rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just want to have total control. Want to know what you think? Want to know what you do? They don't think you know, but I know that you do. Because your dollar ain't shit and it's taxed to no end because of Richmond north of Richmond. When the wealth and income of the top 10% and the rest of us becomes too glaringly and unfairly obvious, and when the middle class all but disappears, those with the wealth and power resort to totalitarian methods to retain their ill-gotten privilege. Hence the increase in surveillance, the increase in taxation, and ultimately the increase in the control of the population. This has played out in the end stages of empires, from the Romans to the British to now the American. Can it be reversed? Maybe. The popularity of this song, which came out of nowhere and went viral on the internet, is a good sign. It's also instructive that the elite owned and controlled media are trying to discredit the song in any way they can. That's this week's Report from the Fields. I'm Richard Fields. Talk to you again next week.
So these rich men,
pretty cool, yeah.
these rich men north of Richmond are, it's the same group of people who want to control your life, whether it's Richmond, it's north of Richmond, or what is that, north of Stockton? You can. It's got the same kind of feel to it. That there's this
And
sense.
it's funny how both sides jumped on this song, and the left claimed that it was. As it was about corporate greed and big corporations, and the guy was a big fan of Joe Biden, and the right said, no, this is obviously about, well, the guy laughed at that. He said, no, I mean, these people that are trying to, the Republicans tried to jump on board and say, yeah, and he said, no, you're the people I'm talking about. And then the liberals tried to jump on board and say, well, no, he's talking about corporate greed, and he's, no, you're the people I'm talking about too. It's the people in power.
It's those rich men north of Richmond, both Democrats and Republicans, and the grifter class that surrounds them that he was actually
Moochers and looters.
Yeah, that's the group of people he were talking about, and how much desire for control, not just of protecting property and protecting our economic freedom, but they want to control every aspect of our lives, including your family. And we're going to move on here. The California AG, Attorney General, is suing a school district over their policy to inform parents that their children are dealing with gender issues.
Gender dysphoria.
Yeah, gender dysphoria, well, whatever it is.
That they've requested to be addressed by a different pronoun. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the question is, what right do schools have to make these significant medical decisions for children? I mean, is it the government through the schools that are actually the parents, or are parents the parents? And the second part is, I know from personal experience that sometimes children fear coming out to their families when they have no rational fear. Teenagers don't always have, and especially younger people, don't always have rational thoughts.
Well, I mean, 70-year-olds don't have rational thoughts. I mean, most fears are, fear of being burned alive if there's a fire there and a can of gasoline, that's a rational fear. But most of us are afraid of things we shouldn't be afraid of, and not afraid of things that we should. And when you're young and being bombarded by disparate forces pulling at you, your parents are feeding you one message, your peers another, your teachers another. I'm not saying there's grooming going on, but Bill Maher, who used to be a dyed-in-the-wool liberal, says, you can't go to a party in L.A. where he lives without a couple of parents talking about their kid transitioning, and you can't find a party in Oklahoma where their parents are talking about their kids transitioning. So one or two things is happening. Either they're creating this environment in California, or they're stepping on the problem in Oklahoma. But the idea that a school thinks that their parents shouldn't be told about something as important to them as the mental health of their child as they go through a major change. This is a huge change in their outlook on life, the way they view themselves, the way their future will pan out. To say that you can keep that information from the child's parents is crazy. There are laws in place to protect children from abusive parents. It looks like there's no laws in place to protect children from overreaching schools.
And that's the thing. We all acknowledge that there are parents who are abusive, but assuming every parent is abusive because the child has fear of having a difficult conversation with their parents. Every child has fear of having a difficult conversation with their parents. And so using that as a justification to remove parental rights, and what damage is that going to cause to that child and to the family long term?
To a relationship.
There's no conversation about that.
Yeah. Well, so if you're teaching children that they're supposed to keep secrets from their parents.
And who else is it? So is that later? It's not just their parents. Are they going to keep secrets from their spouse later? Are they going to be completely open with the person who is their life partner.
And then you require them to make a decision to say which secrets should I keep. If that teacher touches me in an inappropriate way, is that a secret I keep? Oh, let me go ask my parents. Oh, I can't ask my parents because I've been told to keep secrets from my parents. I mean, I quite frankly don't care about how people think about how they deal with each other sexually, as long as it's all consensual. But we basically, in the state, in this country, we have rules written to where children are not allowed to engage in consensual sexual activity until they're 18 or 16, you know, and certainly with not adults. And isn't the change of sexual bias and the essence of sexual activity? I'm very confused on people who would support not informing parents.
Yeah, there's something strange when you're telling people to not inform those who love you most about something that's such a deep, significant impact on your life. There's something very strange about that.
I
doesn't
know,
make a
and
lot of sense.
I have acquaintances that would just be screaming at me and want to hit me for this attitude. But I'm sorry, that's the way I feel. I have secrets kept. You're only as sick as your secrets. The fewer secrets you have, the healthier you are. And if you want parents to be wonderful, supportive, and nurturing, you don't keep secrets from them. And yes, some parents are bad, and there is some child abuse. But we beat this to death.
Yeah,
too,
but
probably. But it's pretty freaking important in my
But
mind.
abusing the parents who aren't abusive because
Yeah.
you're worried about the parents who are is in itself an abuse, and that has to be dealt with. Minority-owned businesses are suffering a second pandemic as local crime has increased, and local governments, especially in places like here in California, are doing nothing. They're giving the criminals a handout while punishing us for small violations of policy. Right? I get a higher penalty for parking poorly than someone will get for robbing.
The 7-Eleven.
Theft from a 7-Eleven, right? Shoplifting from 7-Eleven or Walgreens or the local grocery
And
store.
if you try to prevent it physically, there are 2 employees of a small store on trial right now, have been arrested for and charged for physically trying to restrain somebody who stole property. If you can't, and people will say, well, this is the huge disconnect between the politicians and reality. Was it 47% of jobs in this country are with small businesses? The way people pull themselves out of poverty is not through going to law school or medical school, because that's a long, long road, and you got to do everything perfectly in a world that's set against you. But opening up a little business and growing it is the way people flock to this country to do it. And if the police state won't police the people that are trying to destroy that, then there's something basically wrong with this country, and especially the state of California.
Yeah, if we're not protecting the average person, we're protecting the criminals. And there is something interesting as we're watching prosecutions from July 6th. Denver has now just given the Summer of Love protesters a cash payment. So you can burn down cities, you can attack police stations, you can loot.
You mean 2020?
Loot local businesses, and the Black Lives Matter protesters are getting cash payments from these left-wing cities, while people who had a minor riot at the nation's capital are getting thrown in jail for decades. There's an extreme disconnect.
You're almost sounding right-wing on me here.
Sometimes you want to hear something. We've got like 2 minutes left, so let's cover this real quick. Deion Sanders has made a big splash in college football.
Completely, it's a 90-degree turn.
It's not as much as you think. Has made a complete big splash in college football. His team upset. He kind of completely revamped the team. Booted out all the old, brought in some of his new guys from historically black colleges, brought them into a major college, and and they created this big,
They
huge upset.
beat a very highly ranked team.
Highly ranked team. And now there's a concern in the Atlantic that this scorched earth policy that he used to rebuild his team will become an accepted strategy.
Yeah.
That this culture is broken. We have to get rid of everybody, bring in new people, rebuild the culture to have a successful enterprise. Well, we can't do that because you might hurt somebody's feelings. Is essentially what they're saying, and that's
it makes. Just out with the old, in with the new. If only we could do that scorched earth policy in maybe Washington, D.C.
Yeah, maybe that's what they're afraid of. Maybe that's what
Throw
they're
out
really
all
afraid of.
And I don't mean by burning. What I mean is getting rid of all the old folks and getting some new blood in.
Yeah. Flush the swamp and reflush.
Can we? I saw something I really like. Let's not call it a swamp, because a swamp is actually a beautiful thing.
Yeah, swamp is
Let's
useful.
call it a sewer. The person said, "Let's call it a sewer."
Well, what do you do with sewer? You flush it down the drain, and that's what maybe that's the
Flush them.
Flush them, and refill the bowl. What is it? What do you?
Yeah, this is probably our last show after the conversation.
Yeah, well,
today.
we're really just killing the last 30 seconds of the show. Is really what we're doing here, John.
We might have killed the show. With some of our comments, I don't know. We'll find out how serious people are about freedom of the press.
Yeah, freedom is a freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom to not have your property stolen is an important thing.
Yeah.
And the freedom for our crew in there to work hard tonight. We want to thank you for dealing with everything. We want to thank you, John, for coming by. We want to thank you for watching. Where's my camera there? You for watching. And we
Thank you to the thousands out there in fan land.
And we will see you next week. Have a good night. And please remember to love everybody.